Hi, this is part 2 of the video that I posted on my Patreon channel the other day about using some vertical lines for a vertical composition and putting some, initial work on a piece of Strathmore Bristol vellum paper. And what I did was I painted this paper with some fluid acrylics in yellow ochre, and then I drew with some charcoal and some water-based Derwent charcoal and some Stabilo crayons and some graphite, and then I brushed it all with some Liquitex matte medium, so that's where I've gotten some of this gray. So that's been my preparation for my painting on paper. That is what I do before I start a painting on canvas. Is I do a lot of experiments on paper where I try to work out different color combinations and drawing and painting over it, and it gets me warmed up. And so I'm gonna finish this and just do a little painting on this and talk about that as I go along. It's not like a serious painting, but it's just kind of a warm-up piece and a practice piece to get me started. So thanks for watching. This is really about the only time I use pastel on an acrylic painting is underneath, just like this. So I don't really put it on top of a canvas at the end. So now as I'm looking at this and I'm seeing it in the iPad here, I can see this is too prominent and it's too much in the middle, which I didn't notice. So I don't really like that. I'm gonna have to work on covering that up. But I've pulled out some yellow ochre and 3 different values of gray and some white. And I'm gonna limit my colors, and I'm just gonna start putting those down kind of loosely with the big brush first, some color shapers, and I'll see what happens. I've got a little over here that I have already mixed, and this is not a very big piece of paper, so I'm not going to use a great big brush, and I'm just going to get started with some thin layers first, and then we'll see what happens. And I think I'm going to cover up some of these lines because I think they're too prominent, so let's just see what happens. And I've been working on ways to hold my brush better. Instead of painting like this, I really try and hold the brush towards the end like this and really move it around the canvas. My goal has been to try to use the brush the same way that I would use my pastel, which is going different directions, moving it around the paper or the canvas, and layering, covering some things up, starting with the thin layer and going from there. Let's see here. So now I think this is light that has some ochre in it and a little bit of gray. So I'm mixing the grays and the ochres together, trying to come up with some different combinations instead of right out of the tube. I don't like to do the right out of the tube for anything. I really like to mix those colors up because when you're mixing all of the colors together, I kind of like that right there. and that. And I'm gonna when you mix the colors together, then you're going to get a more harmonious painting because all of the colors work together. I'm going to take this color shaper in this wet area and I'm going to go through it like that. I really like doing that with the color shaper. It creates some new textures. I can see what's underneath. So I really like being able to do that different places. So I think I will do a little bit stronger yellow ochre. Let's see here. I bet if I mixed some yellow ochre and some darker gray, I probably would get almost a version of a green, because yellow and black make a nice green. This isn't going to make green, but it's going to be another neutral variation. Let's see, what else can I... And I like being able to leave some of these things that are in the background. I like to be able to leave those. And maybe I'll even do some drips. I don't like overuse drips, but sometimes I do like those. I can cover them up as I go along also. But I like to have kind of a difference between thick and thin paint also. See, this is still way too prominent. I'm not real happy with that. I think I'm going to have to cover that up, or else I'm going to have to move this a different direction. So, how about I put bigger brush now? Maybe I'll use my color shaper. Let's see. Yeah, see, I do not like what I'm seeing here at all. And I can, really tell when I'm looking at this monitor on the iPad, which is really helpful to, it's always good to get a different perspective on whatever it is that you're doing. And how can you get that different perspective? You've got to look at things from a different point of view. Now see, I'm liking this better. I think I'm going to just kind of get rid of that. And I really like this scraping through with this color shaper there. Okay. So as I'm looking at this, now I'm thinking I want some darker gray up there. So this is going to take on, which is what happens. It's like, okay, I didn't like what was there. Now it's going to take on a whole different look because those vertical lines aren't working for me. So I need to do something else. And I'm going to darken things up over here. I'm just going to apply the paint with the color shaper instead of a brush. I'm going to go over some of this. Keep it loose. Maybe I'll have put some of it over there. Okay, this is getting a little bit better. I kind of like that. I had to get rid of some of those lines, so I don't mind some of them, but there was just too much. I really like this in here with the texture, but still this line is like way too strong, and I'm not real thrilled about that. So what can I do with that? Maybe I will paint some different shapes in with a different kind of a brush. It needs something else going on, so maybe I will I think I'll use a thin brush and maybe just paint some shapes in. I have something hanging here that I'm looking at, another pastel I did, and I'm kind of copying some of the lines that I had in that. Well, I like that. That's nice. What about some gray? I think I put some gray in here. Here's another thing is that I've been practicing, is how can I move the brush? And, sometimes with brushes, I like to twist them around in between my fingers. And don't just use the brush one way all the time, but how can I twist it around and move it? It creates some different lines when I do that, which I like. So now I like this. You can see I'm kind of getting rid of these dark lines. Oh well, I didn't like them. So, and I kind of like that. It almost makes a new kind of a texture that I think I want to put some even darker gray down. Maybe I will draw back into it too. So, anyway, when you're working on something, you have to ask yourself, is it working? What's not working? What do I like? What don't I like? How can I get rid of what I don't like? Did I like what I just did? Now, I'm liking this better. I like that the yellow is up here. I like that I got rid of those two lines. That was not working for me. Does there need to be some darker in here? Do I need to do anything else? I could add, if I wanted to, I could add some more lines with, say, I could put some things in here with the color shaper if I want some more lines. But, I kind of like what's going on right in here. The straight lines and then these curved lines. So I start with thin paint, then I put some thicker paint on top. I scraped through it with the color shaper using different kinds of brushes. I, take those brushes and move them different directions. Move them this way, move them this way. I could twist this brush around. How many ways can I use this brush? I cover things up. I bring things forward. I let some of the underpainting show through. I can go back in and I can draw back in after something dries. And with different materials, as long as it's water soluble, I can do that. So this is just, it's good to just have a piece that's just a play piece, just a practice piece to see what might happen. Because if you like what happened, then you can use it on a regular canvas. And so I'm going to take a look at this and see where this is going. But this was just a practice and experiment.